So Talladega Super Speedway, a track that usually brings about great racing, an awesome finish, and oftentimes controversy. And nowhere was it more a controversial race than yesterday in the final elimination race of round number 2 of the chase for the Sprint Cup Series Championship. Hello everybody, I'm Seth Cole. Welcome to the revival of Nnscra Radio. For the first time since July 21st, 2013, we are live on the air here in the 1620 WCBM Studios booth, and glad that you are along for the ride. Hopefully this will be the start of a number of Nnscra Radio episodes to be coming out here on the Nnscra Sports channel. So, there is a lot to talk about here today, and we're going to get down to it. We're going to be covering quite a few topics that took place in yesterday's event. Of course, the most notable of them, the controversial restarts at the end of the race. Of course, the first restart being called off by NASCAR, stating that the restart, the green-white checker, did not count because they had not crossed the start-finish line. Then the second one taking place maybe about 500, 600 feet after the start-finish line, calling the caution, and as consequence ending the race with Joey Logano sweeping the entirety of the races from round 2. Also, we're going to be talking about another topic of controversy, both Joe Gibbs Racing drivers Matt Kenseth and Denny Hamlin calling out Kevin Harvick, stating that Kevin Harvick intentionally caused the last wreck of the day with a sour engine in an attempt to make his way into the chase for the championship. We're going to be looking at that as objectively as possible in the next segment, and then of course we're going to be talking as well about the drivers that have now been eliminated from the chase for the championship, those being Ryan Newman, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Denny Hamlin, and Matt Kenseth. So let's start off first here. Let's start our this show off with talking about the restarts that took place. The race ended up going very caution-free up until the end. Up until about, I think it was about with less than 10 to go. We had only had 2 caution flags come out, and those 2 caution flags ended up coming out for 2 drivers' engines blowing up. Not for the big one that Talladega is famed for. It was for solo car engine failures. The first one, of course, being Justin Allgaier, and then the second one being Jamie McMurray. Of course, we also had Ryan Blaney have an engine failure, but his engine failure did not bring out any caution flags. But then we ended up having that caution come out for Jamie McMurray's engine. It was, I think, with somewhere around 6 laps to go. With the pacing under caution, we ended up having our first and only attempt at a green-white checkered. Of course, NASCAR stating that being Talladega, only 1 attempt at a green-white checkered as opposed to the usual 3, which I'm assuming are still in place for other tracks that we go to. And a lot of people very upset about that, but when you think about it, especially with being Talladega and Daytona, you know, this isn't your typical racetrack where you're going to have the opportunity to slow down on a dime. These cars are going 190 miles per hour, and so you got to give the opportunity for safety crews to be able to get out there and everything. And there was a great explanation on this by Kyle Petty and Dale Jarrett in yesterday's post-race, with the fact they were saying that NASCAR has to look at it in terms of how hard the impact is. If there's cars that have spun out and they're able to continue on, then NASCAR doesn't throw the caution flag. But, like with what we saw yesterday with the pounding that Denny Hamlin gave into Tony Stewart on that second and final restart, there was no way that the 11 was going to leave the scene of that accident. And for driver safety, we got to keep that in mind. Yeah, the fans want to see a great finish, but, would you rather see a great finish and it cost a driver potentially his life, or would you rather end up making it safe for the driver so that way they can continue next week? There's no question of what the answer is there. To want the drivers to race it back when there could be potential lives at stake is truly a selfish attitude. So, I applaud NASCAR for the calls they made yesterday, and I'll get into that a little bit more in just a minute. But the first restart, they waved it off. Kyle Larson, Jimmy Johnson, and from what I heard, Casey Kane also getting a piece of it too. They end up stacking up on the start. The drivers did not cross the start-finish line. Now, Joey Logano had a bit of an issue with the fact that, hey, they'd already thrown the green flag. That should mean that with the caution coming out, we should be allowed to finish this race now under the yellow flag. Well, they hadn't crossed the stripe, and when you think about it too, they hadn't yet gotten completely up to full song. If they had, say, been up to full song, then I would have agreed with Logano. But the fact that they had just started out, they were just getting up through the gears, that was plenty ample time for NASCAR to wave off that green flag, wave off that restart. So I honestly don't have a problem with that. Facebook was blowing up yesterday with a lot of people saying, well, they should have had them to continue to race. They shouldn't have waved that off and said, that's not going to be our green-white checkered attempt. They weren't past the start-finish line. So I honestly did not see anything wrong that NASCAR did there. I think it was actually a very good move on their part, and it was a great job by them to quickly let the drivers know, no, that's not it, instead of, they get to the back straightaway and, okay, that's not going to be our time, everybody bunch back up. They were very quick to let them know, no, this is not our attempt at a green-white checkered. So that, I think NASCAR did very well. Then we get to the big controversial point, and that was the final restart, the actual counted green-white checkered. And what it really came down to was really about 100 yards. The caution comes out due to the whole Kevin Harvick issue, which I'll get to in the next segment. But you got Joey Logano on the outside, Dale Earnhardt Jr. on the inside. The wreck takes place behind them, and NASCAR throws the caution. Now, here's the thing. People are saying, and they're right, if NASCAR had waited maybe about half a second more before throwing that yellow flag, Dale Earnhardt Jr. would have been ahead of Joey Logano, and thus would have won the race. People stating that with NASCAR throwing the caution when they did, it basically screwed Dale Jr. out of an opportunity to move into the next round. And I could state a couple of topics here, but I'm not going to. But I will state this in a general sense. When you think about the fact of Dale Earnhardt Jr. and the races that he has had leading up to Talladega, this was our last restrictor plate stop. Dale Jr. had no more opportunities to be able to pull off a last-minute victory to move on to the next round, which makes me think if he did move on to the next round of the chase for the championship with the tracks we've got coming up, Martinsville, Phoenix, Texas, and the pit road issues that they've had, that to me would have honestly been a bit of a wasted slot of having Dale Jr. move in, because if you look at the tracks that we've been to already where he's had bad luck, I don't see a win at Talladega turning the luck of that 88 team around and having him be a contender in the next 3 races in order to make it into the Final Four for the championship battle at Homestead, Miami. I honestly don't. So, going back to that timing of when NASCAR threw the caution, people have to remember they love the sport, but this is a in-motion sport. This is not baseball where a guy steals second base and then they're able to go back and look at the replay and say, okay, he wasn't safe, he's out, his foot came off the bag. This is in motion. As soon as NASCAR throws the caution, that's when the field is frozen. They can't say, oh, let's wait, hold on, 1 second. They can't do that. They've got to throw the caution based on how severe the impact was with the drivers that were involved. And I think, from what I saw, it looked like the caution came out the very minute Denny Hamlin ran into the back of Tony Stewart, which was a high-octane impact event that took place in that wreck. I think they were waiting to see if everybody was able to make it through, going to be able to continue on. I think it was that hit from Denny Hamlin to Tony Stewart. That's what iced it. That's what brought the yellow flag out. That's what ended the race. NASCAR can't help that Denny Hamlin didn't wait about 2-3 more seconds to pile drive into Tony Stewart. They can't help that. They've got to throw the caution at the very moment that they see that the impact has taken place in order to make sure that the drivers are going to slow down, the safety crews can get out there and make sure that that driver that's taken that impact is going to be okay. So, for NASCAR, they can't be held accountable for the fact that this is a motion race. This race, this sport, is constantly moving. Unless there's a red flag, constantly moving, whether it be under the caution flag or the green flag. They are constantly in motion. Therefore, when that yellow flag comes out, the race is still in motion, and it is not NASCAR's fault who's ahead and who's behind. So, there are a lot of people out there that are giving NASCAR flack for what went on in that race, for the calls that they made. In my honest opinion, and this is merely my opinion, but I see absolutely nothing wrong that NASCAR did. Absolutely nothing at all. If I had been in NASCAR shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. And what NASCAR is trying to do is establish something that they kind of seem to falter on near the beginning of the season, and that's consistency in their calls. If people will remember, there were a lot of times when NASCAR did not keep consistent with their calls. And you think back to Daytona, the incident that took place there, I really gave NASCAR a lot of flack at that point. I was like, you should have let them race back. The incident was in turn 2. They're going to be able to race back to the start-finish line. Well, with the explanation that I got yesterday from Dale Jarrett, Kyle Petty, that they look at the level of impact, well, there definitely was a high level of impact in that wreck. Yes, that the drivers would have come back around coasting, but still, is that a risk worth taking? No, it's not. So, Joey Logano by a splitter ahead of Dale Earnhardt Jr. And Dale Earnhardt Jr., you look at what he has said in his interview, and still the junior fans are in uproar. Yes, your driver was eliminated, but it wasn't Logano's fault. It wasn't NASCAR's fault. It's the way things played out. And I understand that with the chase going on, emotions are high. With it being an elimination race, emotions are high. With it being Talladega Superspeedway, a track where you can lose 10 positions in a lap, or you can gain 10 positions in a lap, emotions are running at an extreme. They want to make it into the next round. This is their opportunity at a track that is known for the famed Big One, a track that is known for the famed Sucker Hole, a track that is known for the famed Casey Kane last year was in the chase by the time they reached turn 4, out of the chase by the time they reached the start-finish line. Everything can happen in the blink of an eye, and I understand that is why the emotions were running as high as they were. But Dale Earnhardt Jr., I thought, was very gracious in his interview, very professional in the fact that he did not call out NASCAR. He could have. It wouldn't really have been on any substantial grounds, but he could have. He didn't call out Joey Logano. He could have. Logano didn't do anything wrong, but Jr. could have found a way to be able to blame the 22. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. actually stated when he got out of his car that if he had won that race, that wouldn't have been the way he wanted to win it. Jr. had a good car. Let's not forget that. Jr. had a really good car. Joey Logano also had a good car, however. Do I think that Jr.'s was actually a little bit better than Logano's? Yeah, I do. If given the opportunity, I think Dale Earnhardt Jr. would have made the pass on Logano, would have been able to block him. But both the drivers did a great job when they were out in front of controlling the draft. Anyway, that opinion is neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is Dale Earnhardt Jr. came up short when the caution flag waved. I saw absolutely nothing wrong that NASCAR did. Stay tuned, folks. We're going to be taking a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back, and we're going to talk about this whole controversy through Kevin Harvick being called out by Denny Hamlin and Matt Kenseth. Going to try and look at it as objectively as possible from both sides of the coin. Keep it here, stick here. We'll be right back here with more on Nnscra Radio in the 1620 WCBM Studios booth right after this.